Unfortunately, my nose is going a bit blind from just having smelt that enormous assault.
Shut up and sit down.
Hi, and welcome back. Today, we're going to review a perfume from the House of Zoologist, which is one of my favourite perfume houses. The house was founded by Victor Wong, and Victor's vision was to create a portfolio, or a menagerie, if you like, of perfumes that are all based on animals. And the one we're looking at today is one of my favourites from the house, and it's Rhinoceros, the 2020 version. So Rhinoceros, the perfumer who created it was Prin Lomros. And Prin has been responsible for no less than 4 of the fragrances that come out of the House of Zoologist. I think this one is his best. I think King Cobra is a close second. And of the entire portfolio of zoologists, I think probably this would be my second favourite, just behind Civet. So let's have a look at it. Now, the first thing is the bottle. The presentation on this is beautiful, but it has been a bit controversial because they changed the design of the bottle about a year ago, I think it was, and a lot of people didn't receive that change very well. I think probably collectors of the perfumes, they would have been put off by the fact that the bottle design changed so radically. And whether you love it or hate it, I have to say, it really is a fantastically well-made bottle. So the glass here is very dense, almost like a crystal glass, very clear, and there are no imperfections at all that I can see in this bottle. And on the bottom of the bottle, on the underside, I don't know if you'll be able to pick that up, but it's embossed with the letters that spell zoologist, which is quite classy. And when you look down on it from above, you can see that through the bottom of the base of the bottle. On the bottle, you've got this label, which has, as with all of the zoologists, you've got an image on there that's a line drawing of the rhinoceros, and the animals are always wearing their costume. And in this case, he looks like a general in the army with his big general's jacket on with the big epaulets on his shoulder. Very impressive looking fellow he is. And when you rotate the bottle on the left-hand side, you can see in large bold lettering, rhinoceros, so you know what you're looking at. And this is actually quite good for people like me that don't have fantastic eyesight. I can read that easily without my glasses on, which is very nice. When I rotate it the other way, you can see the acknowledgement to the perfumer. So Prin Lomros's name is there on the side of the bottle, and I really think it's great that Victor Wong has acknowledged the contribution of his perfumers. His perfumers are not employed by the house. They're all independents, at least I think they're all independents, and they come in under a contract arrangement to make the perfume, and Victor gives them a very simple brief. He basically says, this is the animal, now you go off and create that animal in a bottle. There's none better than this one, in my opinion, at evoking the smell of the animal and the animal's habitat. Another thing about the bottle that I really like is you'll notice that there's this kind of cove in the bottom of it here. And when you hold it in your hand, your pinky finger just wraps inside that cove there. And it just fits so comfortably in your hand. It just feels like you're holding a little hand grenade full of perfume. And when you take the lid off, your index finger sits comfortably on top of the sprayer. Speaking of the lid, it's held on magnetically. It's a very strong magnet. There's no trouble holding the bottle up by the lid. And underneath there, you've got this gold-plated atomizer, which works very, very well. So this morning, I sprayed some of this on my right arm, knowing that I was going to be making this video this evening. So it's now about 8 hours later. And what I'm going to do now is spray it on my left arm so I can tell you about the opening of this perfume, and then I'll describe how my arm smells after 8 hours so you get a good idea of the dry down. I've worn this quite a few times and in different situations, so I know what it's like in the dry down. What I will say is up front with this one, it's so big and bold and beastly that the first couple of times I smelt it, I had a sample, I didn't actually have a bottle, but I got quite put off by it, and I didn't really take to it in the first couple of wears. But it's one of those perfumes that really grows on you, and it's really grown on me, which is why I bought a whole bottle. So I'll just spray a bit on the right arm now. It's a great atomizer. You get a really nice mist out of there. Whew, I sprayed a lot of it, didn't I? 3 sprays. I normally only do 2. But in the air, this is a room filler to start with. It's a big, effusive perfume. It opens to me, straight away, I'm there with those animals, those big rhinos. Now, you could be out on the savannah in Africa around a watering hole, but to me, it evokes more, I feel like I'm in an enclosure, maybe at a zoo or an animal park, and perhaps that's just because of my urban background. But it's kind of like there's this, the opening's fairly wet. To my nose, it's kind of a wet, grassy smell, almost like the hay and grass fodder that they put out in an enclosure. And I feel like I'm standing right there. I'm not on the outside looking in. I'm in the enclosure with the animals. And I can smell this wet grass. There's a bit of poopiness and you know, pissiness from the animals. And there's also the animalic smell, this kind of leathery skin smell. But it's really big and beastly, and I'm really right there, which I love, because I like perfumes that transport me mentally to another place. And that's where I am right now. As I said, can be quite confronting in the opening. It was for me, and I think that if you just sprayed this on and walked into a room, people would think, my God, where's that guy been? Like, has he just come out of an animal enclosure? Fortunately, it does dry down fairly quickly, and it goes from being a room-filling scent to something that's maybe got a 2-metre sort of projection around you. And then within a few hours, it's come back to something that's, you know, a nice sort of sillage about 1 metre around you. So the dry down is very interesting. There is quite a transition. And if I smell this arm, which I sprayed this morning, unfortunately my nose is going a bit blind from just having smelled that enormous assault. But I'll try to describe what this is, and I can describe it from memory anyway. But what's happened here, the grass now is dried down. It's like maybe the sun's come out and everything's dried off a bit. And so underneath now we're starting to get all of the base notes coming through here. And it's really quite nice, because what we're getting is the continuation of that leather and animalic kind of smell, but it's supported by a wood, and it's a kind of dark, like an oud wood, a really warm wood. And then overlaying that, we've got this kind of tobacco smell, almost like a fresh pipe tobacco, and a smokiness. So all of that combined makes this really warm wood spice amber kind of arrangement. It's really quite nice, and I have to say that it's gone from being this total beast, unapproachable rhinoceros that you're scared of, to being something actually quite classy, something that, you know, you could wear with a dinner jacket. It could even be worn by a James Bond, which you would never imagine that at the outset. But there you go. And even now, like this one now is starting to dry down fairly quickly, and I can smell now the tobacco, almost like a cigar coming through on that one now. But this one is just so smooth and classy, you could really wear this out. So where would you wear this perfume? Well, initially, probably in your bedroom. The first half an hour, you don't want to be, I think, around people. But once it's got into the dry down, I think it's very approachable. And in fact, I've had a couple of people say they really quite like it when they smell it on me. I wear it just about everywhere, but I would suggest that you could wear it outdoors. You could wear it to a picnic or a barbecue. You could also, as I said, you could dress up and wear this out after you've got past the initial hour. And there'd be no problem wearing this out in an elegant setting as well. Who's it for? Well, as with all the zoologists, it's marketed as being unisex, However, I would say that this is probably masculine leaning. It's certainly masculine leaning in the opening, but even in the dry down then, the tobacco, and there's almost a little bit of booziness about it too, you know, a whiskey type smell, and you would probably associate that more with a male wearer than a female. But that's not to say that a woman, if she's confident and maybe a little bit assertive, could certainly wear this as well. So in terms of performance, it's an all-day perfume. I sprayed this on this arm 8 hours ago and I can still smell it clearly on there as a skin scent. I would say that you'll get easily 12 hours out of this perfume. It comes in a bottle that's 60 ml, I think it is, the bottle here, which is kind of an unusual size. And I think that retails from memory for about $350 here in Australia. So it's not cheap, but for niche fragrances, I guess it's average price for a niche, and you can probably get it at discounters for a fair bit cheaper than that. Would I recommend it? I would not recommend blind buying it by any means, because this one would be a very dangerous and risky blind buy. You could get quite offended by it straight out of the packet, as I did. But it's important to note that the first time I had a sample to start with, and the first time I wore it, I really didn't like it. I thought it was unwearable. And then the second time I thought, oh, you know, maybe it's okay. But by the third wearing of it, it really grew on me, and I just fell in love with it. So I would say get a sample, get a decant, but make sure you wear it 3 times before you write it off or decide whether you want to buy it or not buy it. I think you'll find that it's something that definitely grows on you. I think it's almost in the category of masterpiece, this perfume, because it does this amazing trick of, you know, putting you right there in the enclosure or on the savannah with the animal initially, and then you come back from that and it becomes this classy skin scent. So how it does that, I don't know, but hats off to Prin Lomros, who is the perfumer on this. Yes, he's done a fantastic job. Please let me know, have you tried this perfume, Rhinoceros, or maybe the earlier version of Rhinoceros, and what do you think of it? How does it compare with other zoologists, if you've tried any of the other ones? Or how does it compare with other perfumes that are not from Zoologist? Very keen to get your thoughts on that. And until the next episode, take care, stay safe, and enjoy your fragrance, whatever you're wearing.